You are listening to More Than a Sniff, a weekly podcast of Western States Canine College. I'm Joe, owner and principal trainer here with my colleagues Chris, Michelle, and Shannon. Today, we are going to talk about do we adopt from a rescue or shelter or from a somebody that's getting rid of their dog for some reason or another? Do we go for the puppy? Do we go for an adult dog? Do we go for a purebred? And I think really talking about the pros and cons to each. And from a training perspective, I think we've all had our share of all of the above. So just from a perspective of training and working with dogs and what we experience owners going through, just to give you a little insight, and hopefully it'll help you make the best decision on your next dog into your home. So let's start with rescues. And Shannon, what's been your overall experience with rescues, and how many of you rescued versus other avenues?
I guess I technically count all my dogs as rescues. Yep. Even though I've gotten ones from the shelter, I've gotten ones from people that were giving them away,
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten ones as puppies that people abandoned. So, technically, I feel like they're all rescues, but I've had all of those scenarios.
Yeah.
So, I guess for strict rescues that are from, the animal shelter, one.
Okay.
I had one dog that I went with my very good friend. She wanted a dog, and we went to get her a dog, and I got a dog also. So, it was kind of unexpected, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd been thinking about having a dog and whether or not it was fair, because I was in college at the time, and I didn't know if I had time to spend with the dog, if it would be fair to them. And I ended up getting this dog, and, he's my adventure dog, and he'd go with me everywhere, and me and my friend would take our dogs and go hiking and whatever. So when you're picking a shelter dog, I think the main thing that you have to realize is a lot of the personality that you see when you adopt them will change when you get them home, because it's so stressful for them to be at the shelter.
Yeah. And
you can pick a nice dog that has good qualities, but as they get comfortable in your home and get to know you, naughtiness starts to come out that you have to deal with. Yeah. And that is all the dogs, because their brain goes into a different mode when they're at the shelter, because it's scary. They're not in a pack. Everything's changing. They're with all these strangers. The highest stress level that a dog can be in, I think, is to be at the animal shelter. So once they get home and they start relaxing, their personality can change.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I kind of feel like whether you're getting a dog from a breeder or whether you're getting it from the shelter, I think they're all rescues. They all need a home to some degree, and it's really finding the best dog for you. So I definitely agree that kind of no matter what avenue you go through, you can really say they're all rescues in a sense. But Michelle, what about your perspective of getting a rescue dog from a rescue organization that just strictly does fostering? So they go pull the dogs from the shelters and foster.
Honestly, I guess if I was going to adopt a dog that way, that's probably the avenue I would go, because I think the foster people are going to know a little bit more about that dog's personality. They're going to know the naughtiness that happens. That being said, I would probably interview the foster people just as much as I would like a breeder or such thing, to know if they actually know what they're doing, what they have done to train the dog, what their dogs are like, and so on.
Yeah. So without naming names, I had a client that actually adopted from a rescue organization that does strictly fostering. And when she met up with the foster to get the dog, she opened her trunk and got the puppy out of the trunk.
Like a regular car trunk?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I would turn around.
Yeah.
And be like, nope.
Right. And
then I'd call that rescue.
Right. So it definitely is important to understand what the foster home is like. We've had dogs in the home that are not ours, and we're waiting for owners to find their dog or the dog a new home, or we're trying to help them find the dog a new home. And it's a different attachment for sure. And from somebody that's rescuing animals versus a training foster home is so different because they're almost into a somewhat of a coddling, helping type mindset, comforting, nurturing type.
Bad.
Yeah, versus in ours, we're doing everything that we can to set the dog up to be successful, to go into a home and making sure that, this is a solid, routine for the dog. And sometimes they get in so many dogs that they're not able to create solid routines, or that they're just not in the mindset of training versus rescuing. And I think that's somewhat of a challenge and a disadvantage to people going into getting rescue dogs, is you don't really know, because they are in survival mode. Whether they're in a foster home or whether they're in a shelter type environment, they're still somewhat in survival. They know that that's not their home, because you just don't have the same relationship, because emotionally you don't want to be attached to. And so also, we want to find these dogs homes. And so you're always going to create the best picture and not necessarily the challenges that they're having as well. And so some of the words and things that you've heard, Chris, that people say to get the dog adopted, or that our clients have said, well, they told us this about the dog. What are some of those that you've experienced?
Some of the funniest ones to me are, a complete shift on what the breed of the dog is, where clearly this dog, looks like let's just say pit bull.
Yeah.
And I actually sat in a vet clinic. We were handing out some flyers for the business, and I was sitting there with one of our employees, and we were waiting to talk to the vet, and a lady came in with her dog. The dog was a pit bull, and we sat there and listened to her, and the receptionist said, well, what kind of dog do you have? She says, well, I got it from the rescue, and they told me it was a hound. And both her and I looked at each other and just kind of chuckled, like, wow, okay, hound, got it. There's the breed thing, and I think we find that more when when they're a lab mix, where you don't want to carry, well, not you don't, but there's a stigma that comes with the word pit bull. Like when you find mold in your house, whoa, you found mold in the house. Right. There's a certain stigma that comes with that, and so I think you see a shift from what we would normally classify as a pit bull to now more of a lab mix.
Yeah. And I think it's, it just does the dog a disfavor because if you know what you have, then you make the choices accordingly. And, I think I have come across a lot of senior citizens that have adopted some fabulous pit bulls, and who cares? But be honest so that people can be prepared.
When it comes to rescues, breeders, wherever you get your dog from, and whatever kind of breed it is, what matters is whether or not this dog is balanced in your home, whether or not you have a balanced relationship with it, whether it's a Chihuahua or a Pit Bull or a Mastiff or a Shepherd or even an Italian Greyhound.
Yep.
If it's balanced within your life,
who cares?
You can't ask for better.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the challenges is, stop trying to just get the dogs out the door as much as let's make sure it's a balance. Let's, work with it, get out there and work with a trainer. I don't know a trainer out there that would not go with you to help you pick a dog out, from a rescue, from a foster, from a breeder, from somebody just selling a dog on KSL or Craigslist or whatever. if you find the right balance, then your journey becomes so different than a battle. And that's what I feel like if there was, if rescues would promote, well, why don't you bring your trainer with you, and let's find the right dog for you. And sometimes I can go off of, there's some homes that are really easy to place dogs in, that really no matter what, let's just find the look or the size that we're looking for. And you want an old man, let's go find an old man, because you're pretty much going to be balanced in the house because of the structure of the household. And so I don't necessarily need to go with them as much as just give them, this is what you need to look for. But others, I think that if people would actively search out trainers prior to finding that dog, you're going to be set up for success right out of the gate, because trainers will ask questions that you don't think about asking from a training standpoint. Michelle, what's been your experience getting from a puppy from a breeder?
So I have a rescue dog that lives with my parents still. I have a dog that I would consider came from a backyard breeder, and my other two came from actual breeders. Mm-hmm. And the difference is the relationship that I have created with those breeders has been really great, because they've been there, the actual breeders, not the backyard breeder, but they've been there for everything for my dogs, even if it's just that I need to call them and tell them they're sick, which has been really great. So I think that's the difference in getting from a breeder versus a rescue, is the rescue will take the dogs back, but they don't have that relationship with their own puppies to care enough to actually be there for you and recommend food and stuff like that. Yeah. That being said, I would not take either of my other two back ever. So and they're really great dogs. Yeah. And in all of these situations, I have had a trainer set up before. Well, actually, the two breeder dogs, I was a trainer at that point. So but the other two, I already had a trainer set up and ready to go when I got them. Not that they were the greatest trainers, but that's a different story. So.
Yeah. Shannon, have you had experiences with breeders, from even getting a dog from a breeder versus, your experience in the vet world coming from breeders?
When I lived with my aunt when I was going to college, she got a dog from a breeder, and so that was our dog together, kind of. So she found the breeder, and then they lived in a different state, and they actually drove the dogs to our house and let us pick from the dogs that they had. Wow. And then they were really young, like 4 or 6 weeks, like really little puppies, and they were going to drive them home, and then when they were ready, bring them back for us. But my aunt was like, no, I really want the dog now, so they left the dog now. But I worked at the vet and had experience with dogs, so they felt comfortable to do that, which lots of good breeders will say, no, we need to keep the dog. Because there's lots of socialization and, becoming a dog in the world and having rules from your dog moms that dogs have during those times of their life. Yeah. And so, if you're getting a dog from a breeder, depending on if they are doing those things, you should let the breeder keep it until they want to let them go. If the breeder's not doing those things, then you should probably get it and do them so that it turns out to be a well-balanced dog. Yeah. Because you have to make it eat from all different kinds of bowls, so they're not afraid of bowls. It's just all these things about how to live and be a dog. Yeah. Yeah. So that was an experience I had with the breeder. And then my other dog is a purebred dog that was from a breeder home that was kind of like an accident pregnancy. And so that was a breeder that I dealt with too. But I didn't ever have a relationship with them. Once they gave me the dog, I never talked to them again in both instances. Yeah. So I had more success having relationships with the veterinarian and with the dog trainer and things like that than with the breeder. So it's just a different experience, I think. Right. And it depends, because some breeders are really, really want to know what's going on with the dog that they give you because they really care about it, know? So it just depends on the personality, I think. Yeah.
And I think that, philosophy is. Yeah, exactly. And I think, Chris has done a lot of helping with clients understanding their contract from a breeder standpoint. And a lot of the contracts are fairly extreme, and really don't stand up a whole lot. I mean, of course, you can share, with some of the contracts that we've read over and helped clients and.
Yeah, I think to sum up what you're saying is there's a wide variety when you deal with getting any dog really, regardless of where you get it from. Typically, there's a contract. The exception to that may be, getting a dog off classifieds.
Yeah.
Something to that extent.
Yeah.
But if you were to go out and find a breeder, a German Shepherd breeder, for example, from a backyard breeder to a legitimate breeder, someone that is breeding their dogs specifically for certain traits, for carrying on a certain bloodline, versus a backyard breeder who perhaps is classified as more of a haphazard. My dog and my friend's dog got together and accidentally had dogs.
Yeah.
Had puppies. And they find some value to that, and then turn around and sell the puppies. But in any of those events, you'll typically end up with a contract, and the contracts are out there to, number one, I think they're out there with good intentions overall, and that the intention is to make sure that the puppy that you get or the dog that you get is cared for, right? Reasonably cared for, not thrown out on a chain in a backyard somewhere in the most extreme examples. But the goal for everybody is making sure that the dogs that we get go to good homes being cared for, and attentive, not thrown out in the backyard to be ignored. And the contracts can range anywhere, I've seen some very onerous contracts that were a breeder will typically put in a contract that they have what's called first right of refusal, and that means that after you get your dog, if it just so happens that the dog doesn't work out in your family, the breeder or the person who sold you the dog gets the first chance to get the dog back. And this is in our own experience, this is a 50-50 thing. Sometimes a breeder or a rescue honors that. Sometimes they want nothing to do with it. We WS has been down many of these roads before with many clients, and some honor that, some don't, some won't even respond to you. I've never heard, nor have I ever seen anybody going to court over this. Yeah. I think I've heard of it. I haven't read any cases about it. It's just everything out there is to help protect the dog, protect you.
Yeah.
You should not ever get a dog without reading the contract, though. Yeah.
And what about, Chris, in the contracts? I've seen some that my clients have had that, the breeder is saying you have to come to me for all the grooming, and you have to feed a specific food, and you have to, you have to feed this supplement, and the only way that you can get this supplement is from the breeder because they've created it themselves or whatnot, And that, if people, I think, read over it, they're getting this puppy and it's brand new, and then they get home and they're like, oh my gosh, like I have to drive clear, 4 hours for my dog to get groomed. And they start kind of having some anxiety about like, am I going to get in trouble, or, how does this work? And, I think, those things have been in there. I've seen it.
I would compare those to like, and tell you my line of thinking here is I would compare them to like non-compete agreements, and the reason I say that is because a court looks at non-compete agreements with an eye on what's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And in non-competes, there's usually three things that they look for. What's the time commitment, right? Are you trying to tie somebody up for their life, and is that reasonable?
Right.
What's a geographic distance? Within the radius of, let's say, Salt Lake County. Are you saying that if you're a trainer and you work for us, you quit, you can't be a trainer within the state of Utah for 8 years? Is that reasonable? No, it's not. And then they also look at the industry.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is overall, is the contract reasonable? Are there things in there? For example, you have to use XYZ shampoo. Okay.
Right.
Probably not reasonable,
Yeah.
right? You are going to care for your dog with, the way that you're going to care for your dog, financially and
Mm-hmm.
otherwise.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've even seen contracts that state the rescue or the breeder must be notified if the dog is going to be euthanized.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. And it doesn't give any specified time, right? It could be 8 years from now or
Mm-hmm.
a year from now, whatever. You have to look at these with an eye on reasonability. And if, is it reasonable for you to drive 4 hours to get your dog groomed by the person that sold you the dog? Probably not.
Yeah.
Would it be enforceable? Probably not.
Right. Yeah. So I think overall there's, you're right. I mean, the contracts are there to, make sure that you understand how to take care of your dog. You know that this dog has to be groomed. It's, it's a dog that you can't just, brush out. It's, there's some grooming involved or, whatever, or food recommendations or whatever. And I think that's the intent of the breeders, but they, everybody, whatever their passion is, whatever they're, doing, we tend to maybe go overboard or put our opinions into things that it's not realistic. It's just your passion.
I would also add to this, as we talk about the details and reasonability, this is a good example as to why we should have a third party with us, whether that third party is a trainer or a friend. We tend to buy or get dogs on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh my God, that dog is so cute, and you just have to have it. But when you have somebody, a third party with you, another trainer or something like that can see what's in front of you, this contract, while you just want this dog, and you're not really concerned with the contract at that point. This is a good reason to have a third party with you.
Yeah. And I think rescues as well, heading in, even buying a dog off of classified somewhere, they all need a home, and I am really okay with, honestly, any avenue. I'm not opinionated on one way or the other because I've just always felt like they need a home. But I also think that, having somebody else there, and that's something that we from WS, I think, take a lot of pride in, is it's something that we don't charge for because we're passionate about getting the right dog in the right home, whatever that is, whatever that choice is. But also, if it's not the right dog in the right home, we are upfront about talking to the people. I've got some clients now that are going through a little bit of a journey, retired couple, heading into their retirement life, and there was a spontaneous purchase of a puppy, and they get the puppy home, and it's not what they thought they were getting, and they were told it was a lab mix. It's a Pyrenees, pretty through and through. It's Pyrenees. It's got something else in it, but the puppy is also deaf. And they're incredibly overwhelmed, and we had a long conversation of whether they should keep him or not, and find a home. He can't go back to where he came from. They met him in a church parking lot. They don't even have the information anymore. but now, is it the best home for this dog, and can they keep up with the challenges that they're going to face with it? And so, we're working on that through, and I told them it might not be the best dog for you, and, might be worth contacting some, the Pyrenees Rescue. People have actually been really good to help them and talk them through things and possibly help find them a home if they can hold on to them until then. But, I think that that's something that we take pride in, is helping. My sister lives on a ranch, and it's somewhat survival of the fittest down there in Scipio, Utah. And they don't spend a lot on their dogs, which is fine, but the dog has to mold into that ranch life and not chase livestock. And you're not going to be fenced in, and you need to stay home, and you need, there's a lot of expectations. And so my sister's budget was $25 at the time. And I went into a home, and it was quite terrifying home that I went into. But this little puppy ended up being the Lassie of Scipio, really. And he's been through a lot, and he's survived a lot. But he's a great dog. So I don't think that you can just get great dogs from expensive breeders. I think that you have to be careful about what you're spending on dogs, because we purchase off of emotion. People will take advantage of that with the almighty dollar. And some of the mixes that are out there that's going around, and people are paying, $15,000 to $3,000 for mutts when they're mutts, and you can get a good mutt for $150 that is, just as good, and you're going to go through probably less challenges than you would getting a mutt from a breeder. Honestly, if you just got a mutt from a rescue, I would say that you're going to have less challenges overall. And so, don't get fixated on one trait that you want in a dog, and that you think that that's the only trait or breed that you have to get. And right now, I'm going to throw this out there, that one of the biggest crazes that's going on is the hypoallergenic breeds. And there's a lot of hypoallergenic breeds, a lot. There's even a lot of mutts out there that are hypoallergenic breed that you can pay $150 for. And so, Michelle, what would you give somebody's recommendation if their requirement is, I would like a hypoallergenic dog?
Oh, I'm going to need a lot more than just that, Joe. A lot more than just seeing one hypoallergenic dog. There's a lot of other things to take into consideration with that.
Yeah.
Especially the grooming requirement, because most hypoallergenic dogs come with some kind of expensive grooming. Are you going to pay for it every 6 weeks?
Yeah. Because
those dogs have hair, so it keeps growing.
Yep.
But even beyond that, we're talking, what kind of temperament do you want? What kind of size dog you want? There's so much more that goes into that than just hypoallergenic, for sure.
Yep.
Even dogs that aren't hypoallergenic, if you groomed them once a week, they probably would be fine in your house. If you bathe them. So
yeah. So what if I was told, and I have a couple of really good friends that have some really great. One's a Labradoodle, and the other one's a Golden Doodle, and then I've got one that's a Sheepadoodle. I really like them. Give me some guidance.
With that, we would probably have to go into both different breeds that you want. So let's just the Sheepadoodle. We'd have to talk about the personality of the sheepdog and the personality of the poodle. It's not just what you see is what you get with those dogs, because they're two different breeds, and a poodle and a sheepdog are completely different. So we would definitely have to make sure both of those breeds matched up for your personality. Not to mention, labs and stuff like that aren't hypoallergenic, so you might get a dog that's not hypoallergenic if that's really what you're concerned about.
So even if it's mixed with a poodle, it's not necessarily going to be...
Absolutely not necessarily. It's not determined by that. It's what gene they get. So there's definitely... I've met so many, especially Labradoodles, that are not hypoallergenic, and they shed just as much as a lab does. But they still have to get a haircut every 6 months or 6 weeks. So you're still dealing with that, and you're having a shedding dog, but you're sneezing all over. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just, hey, I want a hypoallergenic dog, so I'm going to go get a doodle.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that there are so many hypoallergenic dogs.
Yeah.
Overall. I mean, it's not just...
And it has to do with, like, your own body, too.
Sure.
Like, just because they say it's hypoallergenic doesn't mean that you're not going to be allergic to it.
Yeah.
Because the allergy is your body reacting to a protein in the dog.
Right.
So, and it could be a protein that's in their saliva, and then they lick you, and you have allergic reactions.
Yeah.
So, like, the definition of hypoallergenic actually has to do with what you're allergic to and not what the dog is.
Nice. That's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. Because I know for Shar-Peis, they just send me itching like crazy. But I'm not allergic to dogs. But, in general, the Shar-Peis that I've dealt with.
We had a Dalmatian that growing up that I would break out in rashes when I touched him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it wasn't sneezing. Like, it
Right.
wasn't like that kind of allergy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it could
Well,
be
even
totally different.
Brandon with the bulldog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my husband does have allergies, but, like, having dogs in and out of our house does not seem to bother him. But we have one dog that we board that he cannot go in our basement. Like, and he still is having allergy fits, like, while that dog is there.
Yeah.
That he cannot touch him. Like, cannot. Like,
yeah.
So
that's a really good point. It's a really good point. It's finding that dog. And it could be from breeder to breeder, like line to line.
Sure.
That your allergies are affecting. So
I do technically have a hypoallergenic dog, and I wouldn't recommend his breed to most anybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just because he's hypoallergenic is not like, hey, you should get one.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Yeah. There's so much to look at and so much. And at the end of the day, do you see a problem, Chris, if we want a family dog, the kids have allergies, we kind of face that a little bit. Is it okay for the dog to be outside all the time? Or how can you, like, we want a dog, but we just we have one child that it will end up in the hospital if the dog's in the house because of allergies. So, is it okay for a dog to be an outside dog and still have that relationship and that?
Yeah, you bet. Dogs adapt very well, more so than I believe we give them credit for. I sarcastically like to say, "What would dogs do without us?"
Yeah.
We just overall, I just feel like we don't give our dogs the credit that they deserve.
Yeah.
These animals have survived for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
They've been around probably longer than we have.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and throw that out. I'm not a scientist, FYI.
Don't quote me.
But don't quote me on that one. Okay, so the point I'm making is dogs are resilient and they adapt very, very well.
Yeah.
Can a dog be an outside dog and a family dog? Sure, it can. Just because your dog is outside doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah.
This is the balance for your life.
Right.
This is the balance for your family. We have our three here are primarily outside dogs.
Yeah.
We leave them outside most of the day.
Yeah.
And they have food, or they have water, and they have shelter, and shade, and whatever. But they come in at night. Our oldest unfortunately has my allergies.
Our oldest child.
Yeah. We learn to live with it. Yeah, and I guess I don't know anything different.
Yeah.
So, it's okay.
Yeah. I think it's, at the end of the day, I think that, whatever your journey is, don't just jump into something, really get a third party. And more than anything, there's so many trainers. There are so many trainers that can help you. Interview them, talk to them, help yourself find the right dog so you're not battling the challenges that people battle all the time. Understand the breeds. Michelle's got a client that has no idea the breed that they got, nothing about them. And it's a challenging breed. And so, talk to trainers, educate yourself. Even if you don't want to take a trainer with you, educate yourself, and trainers are willing to give that advice and help you be successful with your dog. So, anything else? Any other input on?
I just wanted to say, as easy it is to impulse buy a puppy, because I've been there, there's always another puppy out there. Like if that puppy gets snatched up by somebody else, there is plenty of dogs left out there, and great dogs that might even be better for your family if you give it a few days and ask a third party. Even being somebody that I feel like I know dogs, even with my last dog, Joe had every part of making that decision of me getting that next dog. She read my contract. She talked to the breeder just as much as I did, and we are totally willing to help you out with that.
Yeah. Yep. It's good. Even fosters and rescues and shelters and, dog trainers really have the connections out there in the dog world that we can, really kind of hone in on what's going to be best for you. Thanks, and have a great day, and don't go out and impulse buy a dog. Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com. And as always, we urge you to get out and train.